Alright, welcome to my first episode of Spacing. It's going to be my little talk show I'm going to be doing about League of Legends, and we're going to be talking about LCK today. Yesterday was the 26th of February, and it was BRO and HLE versus DRX. It was a three-game series. In the match, it was a bit of a bummer for BRO and HLE, not going to lie. It didn't go super well for them in the beginning. They were facing one of the last place teams in the league, DRX. And DRX did manage to get the win, but we're just going to talk about how the games went real quick. In the first game, it was a bit slow in the beginning. Things didn't really happen too much. The Fiora was showing her worth in the top lane, which was really good to see, as Fiora hasn't been picked as much as she probably could be in these games. I would like to see her having more of a split pushing, which was realized later in the game towards the end, especially when she was able to basically win the game by herself, and she did take the Nexus by herself, so props to the Fiora pick. I was really excited to see it. Karis though was extremely weak on that Akali in this series. I would really like to see him expand his champion pool. That's something that we really see often in the LCK when the picks are all the same. We get a lot of Lucian, Nami, Zeri, Lulu. It's not really exciting at all. I really would like to see more diversity, as we have seen it just last night with G2 versus Mad Lions. That was a very exciting series. Even though it was only 3 games, it was a total sweep from G2. But I would really like to see more diversity, as G2 really showcased the ability that you can have the flexibility in draft to make better outcomes for you inside of the game. So hopefully we see more of that. I don't really have much else to say about the first game. It was really just something that was realized later as the Fiora was able to split push and she ended the game by herself. That's something that Huni was definitely an advocate about on the broadcast. So glad to see him back on the broadcast and seeing more of him. For the second game, we did get Orianna versus Annie in the draft, which was really exciting to see the showcase of the Orianna and her power into the Annie. She does have a lot more outranging against this champion. Annie does have a bit of a longer range if you pair her with a Protobelt, but that's not a very common build these days, as people don't like to try item diversity either. So Orianna was a success in the beginning. She did end up getting a solo kill in the mid lane. That was really exciting to see. I would really like to have seen Karis do a lot better on the Orianna later in the game. He did really struggle towards the later stages of the game. He did have a blasting wand that was purchased and held in his inventory for about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. For no apparent reason. I don't know why he bought it. I think he was thinking it was the old build for Archangels and just bought it outright. Don't really know what it was for, so nothing really came of it. But DRX did end up winning this game. There really was a bit of a good lead in the early game for Brown, but it just kind of fell apart. It felt like UMT was trying to force too many things. I would have like to see him getting that lead and then pulling back a little bit and smoothing out part of the game to kind of slow it down, because they already had the lead. But I think they forced too much. They gave too much away to the Varus and the Heimerdinger. It was really unnecessary, and then the game just really fell apart. And then DRX ended the win. That's basically just how the game went. I think it's kind of a theme that was happening. Was UMT was forcing too much, especially in that third game as well. I think he was feeling really off in this series. Hopefully we can see better things come from it in the future. But for now, UMT was struggling pretty hard. So in the third game, this was also a slower game. There really isn't much that happened. It's a bummer that in the draft, the casters were able to point out all the picks that were going to come out. I would like to see more diversity again in LCK. It's just really hard to watch the same thing every single game. So, hopefully we get to see more, but The Ezreal was picked into the Heimerdinger support. I really did like to see that, as the Ezreal did show up big along with the Jace in this game. They both outrange the Heimerdinger very well, and they can play around the turrets really easily. They can wait them out and then take an initiative after they've taken care of them and that ulted Heimerdinger turret, if that is the one that was chosen. Really what kind of set up this game apart from the rest is DRX did look a lot more commanding in this game compared to the other two. I would really hope in the future that we see more from DRX, as their split has kind of ended as far as plans, but they look like they might be able to improve for the next split and be able to make some changes either in their roster or in their gameplay. I think that they will be successful if they continue on this track of really trying a little bit harder. But for now, that's really about it to say about DRX versus BRO. Now for the second series of the day, it was Hanwha Life versus Guangdong Freaks. It was a 2-0 sweep by Hanwha Life. This did look like a very good series from Hanwha. Kingen really showed up big in this series. He came out in the first game on the Gnar and then the second game with the Camille. Klid also in that second game showed up really, really huge with the Vi. In the first game, Hanwha Life drafted Nidalee, Caitlyn, and Lux, which was responded with the Jhin and Karma in the bot lane. That was talked about a little bit on the broadcast about how the Jhin and the Karma are not a favorite as a response for these picks, as well as not even punishing the Caitlyn and the Lux and the Nidalee, because there wasn't really a whole lot of setup for these three champions. The Gnar and the Azir don't really have any hold down, something like the Renekton or a Pantheon are able to do to set up the Nidalee Spears and Lux Binds. I would really like to see a little bit more strategy imposed on these drafts to really make these champions speak with each other. Just have some kind of glue to hold everything together in these games would be really nice to see. After that first game, it really showed that Hanwha Life had a really good hold over the games that they were playing today. The second game, Klid got a huge lead. He got 3 kills in the beginning of the game and showed up huge. Got 2 more a little bit later on, and then things started to kind of waver a little bit. It kind of got a little rocky in the middle there. I think this is just because they, again, were going for too much, similar to Umti, and thinking that he's invincible on the Vi and going for a little bit too much so that they could get. I would like to see them kind of smooth things out as well to try to slow down their situation and continue to grow their lead in smaller ways rather than trying too much, throwing it all away. It's just, a little bit safer. After the bit of the rocky period in the mid game, though, they started to pull it back and started to grab a lot more objectives. They started getting towers on the Drakes. It was starting to look a lot smoother for Hanwha Life, and it was a really good showing. Something that I will say about Guangdong Freaks, though, is it seems like a lot of these games, Bulldog has a lot of weight on his shoulders to show up big. He was on the Yone this game, which is a lot more of a stronger pick for the mid laner to be on, more impactful one. I would like to see him have done more in this game. Sadly, they just really fell apart. Guangdong Freaks, hopefully next split we'll be able to get things back together and be able to work more as a team. It felt like this is just kind of a falling apart between the players, and it didn't look super great. So hopefully next split we'll be able to see more. That's all I have for this series and for that whole day of LCK. I hope that we can do more things like this in the future. Thank you for your support. If you are supporting me, I really enjoy watching these games, going to Wall Park and witnessing it just on my laptop. It's a really great environment. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas to give me, I'd love to hear them in the comments. But that's it for today. Thanks.